Hey, y'all, come look at this.
Astonishing.
What's up, you jabronis? Welcome back to the Skuchdown Report. My name is Austin, aka A-Dub, and I'm your host for this evening. I'm back from cheating with my other West Coast league. I'm back to chase estates, back to talk some fantasy football, back more in particular to talk about our league. So without further delay, I have no guest today, so it's just going to be sorry about that, but I'll make it quick. We'll get through this. I have a script this time, so it won't be that long-winded. So first thing we're going to get into is game recaps. I'm just going to give my overall thoughts. We'll give it about 4 or 5 words, how I really feel about each of these games that happened. So let's start off with Thursday night's game. That was Detroit versus Kansas City. And if I had to sum that up in one sentence, I would say Detroit might be real. Kansas City might be in trouble. I won't deep dive too far into that. I mean, obviously they get Kelsey back next week, so we'll see what Mahomes can do with them. But I mean, just from the eyeball test, Detroit looks like they're going to be okay. Amon-Ra St. Brown is kind of that boy. You know what I'm saying? Second game was Carolina versus Atlanta, and I didn't watch too much of this game. I had my red zone going on, but that was definitely not one of the games that played a whole bunch. But I did see the highlights from the running backs in Atlanta. They look like they're going to be a solid running team. Carolina looked like they were just shook, man. Bryce Young looked like a rookie quarterback. Didn't look good for him. They have no receiving threats, really. Might be a long year for Carolina, but Atlanta looked decent. They might actually take that division. Third game we'll get into is Houston versus Baltimore. Staying on the same theme of rookie quarterbacks looking like deer in headlights, I mean, that's what CJ Stroud looked like. Houston did not look that great. Baltimore's defense definitely looked prepared. But Lamar Jackson was a little shaky. He looked decent, but he didn't look like a superstar, you know? I mean, their team ended up scoring 25 points, but overall, good win against a pretty bad Houston team. See how Baltimore fares in that very difficult AFC North. Next game we have was Cincinnati versus Cleveland, and all I got from this really was just a slow start for Cincinnati. I don't think they retained this all year long, and I think Cleveland kind of will fall off. However, it was a decent game for Cleveland. Deshaun Watson didn't look terrible. Cincinnati did look terrible. Hopefully they can fix that next week. Next, we got Jacksonville versus Indianapolis. And I'll tell you what, Indianapolis didn't look too terrible. Jacksonville scored 31 points. I mean, good gracious, Calvin Ridley looks like that dude. I mean, I forgot how good he was. I'm going to be honest with you. I definitely did. But Jacksonville looks good to start. They got a great running back. They got some good wide receivers. They could be pretty good. Their defense is pretty solid too. Don't sleep on Indianapolis, though. They didn't look too terrible. They look like they can keep up in that division. After that, we got Tampa Bay versus Minnesota. And this was a pretty boring game, I'll be honest with you. I had both those running backs in that game, and neither of them did very much. I mean, it was a pretty boring game. Baker Mayfield didn't look half decent, you know, or half bad, I should say. He was okay. Mike Evans looks like Mike Evans. You know, he might turn around and be exactly who we thought he wasn't going to be, which is a 1,000-yard receiver, 10 touchdowns. You never know. Good win for Tampa Bay, though, in a tough division. And then next, we're getting to New Orleans versus Tennessee. And New Orleans pulls out that game 16-15. You know, Derek Carr got his first win. They look pretty average. Olave looked like he's going to be nice this year. But I'll tell you what, Ryan Tannehill looked terrible in that game. You know, Tennessee definitely got off to a slow start, but okay win for New Orleans. We won't put too much stock into it. But again, I keep saying it. That's going to be a tough division, NFC South. Next game we got was San Francisco versus Pittsburgh, and this was one of the first bloodbaths of the week. It was 30-7, and that was putting it lightly. It could have been a lot more. Pittsburgh looks lost. They lost one of their wide receivers to a hamstring injury, but San Francisco is firing on all cylinders, dude. They look like a team that has a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract and have Pro Bowl talent at every other position. They might be the team to beat this year. We'll get to some other teams, but so far, from what we've talked about so far, San Francisco looks like the team. Next, we're getting into Washington versus Arizona, and oh my God, I had 10 heart attacks during that game. How are we winning, by 4 points to Arizona? It's going to be a rough season for us. We're going to get some wins, but man, it's not going to be pretty, I'll tell you that much. One thing I will say, though, is Washington defense looks like they're going to be okay. That defensive front, if Chase Young gets back to what he was defensive rookie of the year, we're going to be firing on all cylinders. Arizona didn't look half bad in defense. Their defense was okay. Their offense stunk up the joint, but, you know, if their defense can continue to play like that, maybe James Conner gets a couple tugs every game, they could be okay. I don't think they're going to be a super tanky team, but they're definitely not going to be a good team. Next, we got Green Bay versus Chicago, and all I got to say is I guess I was kind of wrong about Justin Fields. He still has time to fix it. Obviously, it's week 1, but he did not look very good. A lot of dink and dunks. He typically was like a home run hitting type of a player. I didn't see any home runs that game. Green Bay looked good. Their number 1 wide receiver was out. Jordan Love looked solid, man. Like, he might actually be pretty good, you know? So kudos to Green Bay, you know? Like, hopefully they can keep that up all year. I loved watching that game. Good win for them. Next, we got the hometown Raiders versus the Denver Broncos. And all I got from that really is Denver still stinks. Las Vegas stinks as well, but Denver stinks more. Good win for Las Vegas. Sorry, Jim. They're not going to be that great. But Jimmy G looked decent. After that, we get Philadelphia versus New England. And good for New England for putting up a fight, man. Actually, when I looked up the score, I was surprised Philadelphia won. I wasn't really paying attention to the score. I was just watching the plays and the highlights. And it seemed to me like New England was doing much better. Defense looked solid. I guess Philadelphia just kind of won that game. I really don't remember how they won that game. But to be fair, good game by Mac Jones. I think he was like the fourth or fifth best quarterback this week. So good for them. They're going to be fine. Their defense is always good, but Philadelphia looks like they got a lot in the tank too. Probably the game of the week, Miami versus the Chargers. Besides the Monday night game, this is probably the most exciting game. I said it in my last podcast, man. If Tua stays healthy, Tua is ready for an MVP season. Like, he was out there just firing that pill, dude. Like, absolutely sending moonshots down there to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill looks like the best wide receiver we've seen in 10 years. And then Jalen Waddle's always open. That was a good game, though. Don't take anything away from the Chargers. They look solid, dude. Their running offense looks really good. Keenan Allen looked really good. I think they're going to be perfectly fine this year. But good week for Miami. Miami might end up taking that division in all seriousness if everyone's healthy. Next, we got the Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks. This was a game I wasn't too interested in. I thought it'd be pretty boring. I thought both these teams would be pretty average. Turns out Seattle stinks. We'll see if they can fix that. And the Rams look pretty solid. I mean, they got a guy named Puka Nacua, who's probably the best name in all of football right now. Like, I could just say that name over and over again. Puka Nacua, Puka Nacua, Puka Nacua. Come on now. I got it. But anyways, the Rams look solid. I mean, I think I forgot that Matthew Stafford was at one point an MVP frontrunner, right? Like, he looked decent. That team's young. I don't know if they're going to win too many games, but what I took from that is Seattle kind of stinks. Rams will be decent. Getting into our Sunday night game, sorry, Brando, I have to talk about it. 40-0, 40 ball on your head, a 40 ounce of malt liquor on the Giants dome piece, okay? Sunday night, the Dallas Cowboys, who I hate, by the way, I hate that I had to celebrate this, looked amazing. Now, they weren't great in all facets, you know what I mean? Obviously, their quarterback play, some of their offense could be better, but they really didn't need to be. For God's sakes, they were up, 24-0 in like 2 minutes, like. All I got from that is the Giants may stink. I kind of made a bold statement saying they're going to go under 500. Looks realistic. Hopefully they can fix it over there. They got some talent over there, but Jesus, from week one, does not look good over there for the Giants. I truly pray for them. I hope they're not this bad. And then our final game, I mean, arguably the game of the week. I thought the Miami Chargers game was pretty good, but Jets versus Buffalo, 9-11. Aaron Rodgers goes out, play number 4. Heart-wrenching, dude. Like, I actually feel bad for him. Like, that's actually terrible. And I feel even worse for Jets fans. My current boss right now is a Jets fan, and I had to listen to him all summer talk about how great they were. You know, they had the show. Like, everything was great. Everything was so positive. 4 plays in, Aaron Rodgers might be out for the rest of his career. That stinks. Zach Wilson comes in there, has a whatever game, but either way, the Jets defense is for real. They win that game on a punt return. What a great game. Also, what is Josh Allen doing? Can we talk about that? I'm sure he'll fix it, but what is he doing? Anyways, those are our brief game recaps for the week. I'm sure you guys have seen all the recaps everywhere over YouTube, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents. So the next section we're going to get into is something I want to keep going every week, and it's called Jabroni Watch. And what I mean by Jabroni Watch is these guys maybe aren't the worst players in the league currently, but they're on watch to be. They're definitely on Jabroni Watch. So let me run down a few of these players, and we're just going to keep an eye on them to see if they are actual jabronis. Currently, they're just on Jabroni Watch, okay? First one we got is big money quarterbacks, and by that I mean everyone who got paid this season, or this offseason, I should say. More in particular, I'm kind of looking at Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Danny Dimes. What are they doing? They kind of stunk up the joint week 1. Granted, it's week 1. They have time, but currently they are on Jabroni Watch. Keep an eye out for those boys. I think they'll bounce back. Joe Burrow in particular. But as of right now, as of today, as of the 12th of September, they're on Jabroni Watch, boys. Next, we're going to get into all tight ends not named Hunter Henry. And this is exciting because Travis Kelce was out. I mean, and this truly shows his value because I think after Hunter Henry, the amount of tight ends that scored over 10 points was like 2. Like, how is it the tight ends stink this much? I don't understand. Currently, all tight ends on Jabroni Watch. I don't care who you have. They're all on Jabroni Watch. Oh, you know who else I forgot? Mark Andrews is out too. Don't forget him. He could come back. But without those two, all tight ends, certified jabroni watch. Third on here, we got round 3 running backs. And we are going into week 2. The draft is kind of in the distant past where people don't really remember where people were being drafted. But just take a look back at the draft. Every single round 3 running back stinks. I'm looking at you, Rachaad White. I'm looking at you, Alexander Mattison. I'm looking at you, DeAndre Swift. The list goes on. All I'm saying is go look back at that. Anyone who got drafted after that top tier of running backs stinks. You are all on jabroni watch until further notice. Okay? Fourth, the Pittsburgh Steelers. No one in particular. Your entire collective team is on jabroni watch. Granted, you played the 49ers. It was a tough game, but I watched that game. I had a lot of players. I was invested in that game, and holy shit, they stink. Okay? You got time to fix it. I forget who you play week 2, but you play the Raiders week 3. You got a shot to redeem yourself, but currently, full team jabroni watch. Fifth on my list, and he really didn't even have that big a game, but he just is a jabroni, so I'm going to put him on here. Russell Wilson, jabroni watch 100%. If you don't fix it pretty soon, certified jabroni, don't talk to me ever again. Absolute king of jabronis right there. Russell Wilson, leave him on there till next week. Sixth is DeAndre Swift. I said all running backs before, but more in particular DeAndre Swift. He got outsnapped by Kenneth Gainwell. I think he might have even got outsnapped by like Rashad Penny. Like, what are we doing over there? Like, DeAndre Swift, I think, got 1 rush. Like, is he that bad? I thought he was good. Certified jabroni list. Keep him on there until further notice. He seems to be good, but if you're only getting 1 touch, you're a jabroni. Sixth, I forget where we're at. Sixth, whatever this is. Chargers head coach. Let's talk about it. In the playoffs last year, you were up by, 19, 20 points, and you let the Jacksonville Jaguars come back on you. Week 1, you let Tyreek Hill throw up 36 points on your dome piece, and almost like every 3rd and long, the Dolphins were converting. What are we doing over there? Like, what are we doing? You have skill at almost every position out on that team. The Chargers are kind of stacked low-key. I just played with them on Madden the other day. Their defense is good. How are you giving up 36 points? I blame the coaching. I rarely do. Let's talk about it. He might be fired pretty soon. I don't know. I don't like that head coach. 7th, Seattle Seahawks. Kind of same as the Steelers, okay? Geno Smith, he's been on jabroni watch his whole career. He had a good season. He is currently back on jabroni watch, along with everyone else on that football team. DK Metcalf had a nice little shimmy shake to touchdown, but besides that, the whole team is terrible. You let the Rams put up 30 points on your dome piece? I mean, the Rams could be good. I'm leaning to more towards the Rams are not that good. You let them put up 30 points on your dome piece at home. Seattle Seahawks, until further notice, you are on the jabroni watch. 8th, I forgot where we're at right now, but we're just going to go 8th. In capital letters, I had this written down. New York Football Giants. 40 piece to your dome on Sunday Night Football? What are we doing? Brando, I am being gentle when I say this. You guys stink, dude. What are you doing over there? That might have been the worst game of football I've ever watched in my life. And I watched the whole football game because I was waiting for them to do something. I wanted to have rebuttals for when Daniel Jones made a little scramble. I knew you're going to be like, oh, but Daniel Jones is this, Saquon's that. No. Across the board, from top to bottom, in all 3 facets, special teams, offense, and defense, you guys stink. Get it together. What are we doing over there? New York Football Giants, you are at the top of my list. And last but not least, and we'll give him time, but currently, as of today, Josh Allen is on the jabroni watch, okay? He looked like Joe Montana out there, okay? He looked like Uncle Rico. He was just firing those pills up in the air. I didn't like it one bit. It looked a little sketchy. Until further notice, he's on jabroni watch. I'm sure he'll fix it, but he's my last jabroni watch candidate. And that does it for jabroni watches for the week. Next segment we're going to get into is called Heating Up. And I don't know if you guys ever played NBA Jam or beer pong in New England, but at some point you hit 2 shots in a row and you're heating up. If you hit that third, you're on fire. Now, granted, we're only 1 weekend, but these are the people I've heated up even though it's been 1 week, okay? First on my list, Tua Tagovailoa. I said it all offseason. I was bullish on him. He needs to support 2 top 10 wide receivers, and he did that. But he's currently on pace to pass for more than 7,000 passing yards this year. Like, he is 100% heating up, okay? And if he continues doing this, if he stays healthy, if his coaching stays the same, he could have an MVP season. I just put a $20 bet on him to win the MVP. $20 to win $1,000. Lock it in. I love Las Vegas. Second on my heating up list is Jordan Love. Granted, this is his first game, but I liked everything that I saw from him. The Bears are terrible. He'll definitely have a true test moving forward down the season, but currently he is heating up. And I like him because of all the rookie quarterbacks, and I kind of group him into that rookie quarterback group because this is kind of his first game. Granted, he's been there for a few years, but out of all those rookie quarterbacks, he looked the most ready to play out of all of them. He didn't even have his number one wide receiver, and he went out there and I think he threw 3 tugs or 4 tugs. Like, he looks like he could be the real deal. I'm not saying he is yet, but he is heating up. Third on my list is Anthony Richardson, and this is more so a fantasy heating up than a real life heating up. He looked like a regular guy out there, but in terms of fantasy, he looks like what I want Justin Fields to be. He looks like they're letting him run the ball. He looks like he has good receiving options, and he looks like as soon as he gets Jonathan, what's his running back's name? As soon as he gets Jonathan Taylor back, he's going to be solid because there won't be that many people in the box. I think he could be a sneaky pickup / draft pick. I'm not sure who has him in our league, but I think that could be a good draft pick. He could end up being a starter for someone by the end of the year. Fourth on my list is Tony Pollard. He was heating up going into this season. Like, it was pretty obvious that he was going to have a breakout season. And in a 40-0 skunking of the New York Giants, he put up solid numbers. Dak Prescott didn't do shit. CeeDee Lamb didn't do shit. But Tony Pollard looked like a guy. And he didn't really need to. The team was already blowing him out. He looked solid. He's heating up. When in games where it actually matters, he could actually turn up and be actually super good this year. Fifth is pretty obvious, but Christian McCaffrey. There were doubts on him moving into this year because of injuries. He always has that injury bug lingering over his head. But dude, he might even be on fire. I watched that full game. He is solid, and that team is nasty. Their offensive line is nasty. I mean, Brock Purdy even looks solid, but CMC more in particular is heating up. I think he could have a huge year. Next on the list is Bijan Robinson. And, I mean, kudos to Tyler Algier. I mean, it's obvious the Falcons are going to run that pill pretty much every down. I don't think Kyle Pitts even caught a fucking ball. Or, like, who's the other? Drake London? They're clearly not going to pass the ball. They can support 2 running back ones. Bijan Robinson hit him a little, on the 10-yard line to score that tug. He looks like a guy. Absolutely heating up. He could have a great year. Next on my list is Brandon Ayuk. And I don't know if you watched my last podcast, but he was my fire pick for this year. I think he's going to have a better year than the majority of wide receivers out there. Dude, he might. I mean, for goodness sakes, he was open all day. And Brock Purdy loves throwing him the ball. Brandon Ayuk, I'm not going to go too much into why I think he's heating up. He's definitely heating up. If you have him on your team, great selection. I think he could have a good year. Next is Jacoby Myers. He got the absolute lights knocked out of him coming across the middle, but it's obvious that he's going to be the number 2 target there, and I don't think there's much after that. It's going to be Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. That's going to be the show there in Las Vegas. He's definitely a solid value pick. I think once he comes back from remembering which month it is, he's going to be a solid keeper. And I think, or not keeper, I shouldn't say that, but he's going to be a solid wide receiver, maybe a flex guy. But he looks solid. He had a decent time when he was in New England, and he looks like now that he's out of Mac Jones limbo, he's going to be pretty solid now that he's with Jimmy Garoppolo over there in Las Vegas. Next, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He played on Thursday, so people might have forgot how good of a game he had. But in a game that was pretty boring between the Chiefs and the Lions, he was the bright spot. I mean, he was catching everything. He was always open. And I think that's going to be consistent moving forward. He's definitely someone coming out of last year, going into this year, just never lost a step. He's definitely heating up. We'll see if he's on fire next week. And my last 2 are kind of random, but I wanted to shout them out because, like, they are heating up. And it's Mike Evans. Mike Evans has had, 7 years with 1,000 yards receiving? This year we're drafting him like he's freaking Matty Will out there, you know what I mean? Mike Evans had a great day. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield can support him, and he looks like he kind of just picked up where he left off. I mean, I hate to say it, but Tom Brady was kind of fading as the season went on. Mike Jones was still eating. I don't think Baker Mayfield is much different. Shout out to Mike Evans. I'm putting him on here. It's heating up. He could have a decent year. Lastly, I have Hunter Henry, and I watched most of that Patriots game. I wasn't really watching the score, but Hunter Henry is like one of the primary targets on that offense. And clearly, I gave Jabroni Watch to all tight ends besides Hunter Henry. If you have Hunter Henry, or if you can pick up Hunter Henry, that's a solid tight end start. There's a lot of pretty crappy tight ends out there, and I think Hunter Henry, he even had a decent year last year. He was on my team last year. So that's why I have him on the heating up. I think he had a solid year last year. I think he'd have a good year this year. Patriots don't have very much on offense. I think he's going to be a bright spot there. But that's my final heating up and my Jabroni watches. We'll see how those pan out. But next we're going to get into a segment that I'm very excited to do. I mentioned it in the group chat, but I'm super excited to do this. So there's a feature in Sleeper where you can make nicknames for every one of your players, which I think is super unique and pretty cool. Because typically with ESPN, all you really have is you can make your team name, and that's kind of it. You got to make something witty. But now you can name every single player with a witty nickname. Now, granted, I think there's only like 4 or 5 teams that have actually gone through and done this. But I just want to give a special shout out to all the ones that I thought were top tier. And I'll give you my favorite one at the end, okay? So starting off, we have Zach. And Zach has Tony Formica, and that's for Tony Pollard. That's just top tier nostalgia right there. Like, shout out to Tony Formica. I hope he's doing well. But that is just hilarious because Tony Formica is hilarious. Okay, Zach, great name. I'm putting you up there. That's high quality. Next, I have on Colton's team, and this is one that I don't think it has a lot of... It isn't unique, right? Obviously, Colton didn't come up with this, but this might be the best nickname in all of football. We have Joe Shiesty, and that is Joe Burrow, right? Just a great all-around name. For anyone that's not in rap culture, Joe Shiesty is a pun on the rapper Pooh Shiesty, who is currently incarcerated. And Joe Shiesty is Shiesty is also the word for that little mask that you wear over your face, it like comes down and goes like this. That's also considered a Shiesty. Anyways, great name, Colton. I love it. I mean, it's probably the best nickname in all of football right now. Next, we have from T-Mac, we have DeAndre Paquette, and that is for DeAndre Swift. Again, nostalgia wins, boys. Like, does anyone remember who Andre Paquette is? If he's watching this, shout out to you, Andre Paquette. Probably the one only Asian friend I've ever had in my life. I love that guy. I love Asians, though. Sorry. I mean, I'm marrying one, so it's all love. Next, we have Pickett 6. That's by Nugget, and that's for Kenny Pickett, who is not looking too good out there, boys. It is not looking good. I remember Nugget made a comment during the draft, and he's like, this guy's going to have a year. I don't think so, Nugget. I think that's a long shot. Kenny Pickett looks like he might be worse than Zach Wilson this year, I'm sorry to say. Next, we got Sunshine. That's from Nugget, and that's obviously a reference to Remember the Titans. That's for Trevor Lawrence. If you've never watched Remember the Titans, what are you doing? Go watch it right now. Sunshine, top tier nickname. I love that Nugget. I love that nickname. Next, we got Tool Time. That's from Mike, and that's obviously Jonathan Taylor. If you don't know, do your Googles. Jonathan Taylor Thomas, absolute teenage heartthrob, and also just an excellent nickname. In Sleeper, Mike, I got to give you kudos. Mike has a lot of good nicknames, so that was one of my favorites. Second for Mike, we're going to give it to Saquon the Chef. I mean, just quality Wu-Tang reference there. Obviously, that's Saquon Barkley. Can't go wrong. That's just a great name. And then I'm going to shout myself out. I have 2 of them that I think really shine. One of them's Yao Mingo, and that's for, I don't even know the guy's name. I think it's Jermaine Mingo. Whoever that wide receiver is for the Carolina Panthers, pretty sure he's getting dropped this week. But Yao Mingo, unfortunately, will be on the waiver wires, but great name. I think, at least. Shout out to Yao Ming. And second for me is Jahan Solo. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Star Wars reference. That's for Jahan Dotson on the Washington Commanders. Zach loves a good Star Wars reference. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. But we're going to get to my favorite nickname, and obviously next week or the week after this, I'll do a recap. We'll give you your other teams times to make up some nicknames, or even to adjust your names based on if you find some more funny ones. But currently the best nickname in our league is Travis Kelce. His nickname is currently Kelsey Dugan, okay? And for all of you guys out there in the league that don't know who Kelsey Dugan is, just know that that's funny, okay? That's all you need to know. It's hilarious that Zach has Kelsey Dugan on his team. Nothing else more needs to be said. Congratulations, Zach. Best nickname in the league currently. You need it after putting up a stinker this week. All right, so we're going to get into probably the most fun part of the segment. We're going to get into probably the most fun part of the podcast here, and this is just matchup review. We're just going to go over every game from the previous week and see how we felt about it, right? So first one we have is myself versus Matty Will. And Matty Will pretty much won this game because of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they put up 40 points on my dome piece. They literally put up 40 points in the game and 40 points on my dome piece in fantasy football. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I made fun of Matty Will for drafting them. But, I mean, they got the Jets next week. The Cowboys could be, like, the best fantasy football player after week 2. Like, that's an actual possibility. So, shout out to Matty Will. I apologize. I will eat crow on that one. That was a great pick. It came back and bit me right in the ass week 1. Also, it could have been much worse if he started Tua. I'm not sure who he started, but if he started Tua, it would have been a bloodbath. Also, he could have started Breece Hall. So, Matty Will looks like he has a decent team. I clearly could have got blown out by a lot. It was pretty close, but it could have been a lot farther away had he started those players. Shout out to him. Matty Will gets his first win. I go 0-1 to start. Next, we have Ribs versus Dan. And I got this as the matchup of the week, okay? Brando won with a combined 7 points from 3 Giants players. He started, I think it was Graham Gano, he started Darren Waller, and he started Daniel Jones. And he got 7 points from all 3 of those players and still won. Shout out to Brando for staying true to his hometown team. I would recommend that you don't do that moving forward. However, go with your heart, my friend. We'll see how it pans out. Good on you for getting your first win, though. And then the true story of this game, though, was kind of Josh Allen lost it for Dan, okay? He had 11 points, and he kind of lost it because you got to remember, at the end of that game, they kicked the ball off to the Jets. There's a chance Josh Allen gets that ball back, and all he needed was, I think, 1 point or 2 points to win that game. 11 points, 3 picks. He only puts up 11, and Dan doesn't win. That kind of stinks for Dan. Like, that really stinks for Dan. Good on Brando, though. I mean, he's I got to give it to him. Brando is easily the luckiest player in this league, and he's starting in week 1. Hopefully all of his magic runs out by the time he plays me, but good for him. He starts 1-0. Dan goes to 0-1. Next, we got T-Mac versus Colton, and T-Mac wins, no thanks to DeAndre Swift, okay? I think DeAndre Swift put up a goose egg for him, but T-Mac still won. And weirdly, I think Colton, I hate to say this, but I think Russell Wilson gives you the win if you start him. That kind of stinks. I don't want you to have to think about starting Russell Wilson moving forward. In my opinion, just get rid of him. Like, don't even think about Russell Wilson. Like, you know, but either way, good win for Tom. I don't have much on that game. It was just a solid win back and forth. Both of them kind of had stinky performances on both their teams, but overall, Tom wins. I don't think either of those teams are bad, but T-Mac gets his first win. Colton drops to 0-1. Good game, boys. Next, I got Kyle versus Nico. Brutal loss. Another brutal loss for Kyle, our reigning champion. Loses on the overtime punt return on the last play of the week. That stinks, dude. I'm so sorry. At least when I lost, the Cowboys blew me out. Like, I knew I was going to lose. But losing on the last play of the week absolutely stinks. I'm sure you'll bounce back from this, Kyle. I'm sorry, that's a rough loss. But Nico does get his first win. Shout out to Nico. Also, I want to shout out to Nico because Nico got that win, no thanks to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers got him goose egg, 0 points. Obviously, he went out in the 4th play. That stinks. Hopefully, Nico can find a good replacement for him. But good on Nico for winning. And Kyle, I hate to say this, but I think if you start anyone else at flex, I think you win that game. That kind of stinks. Just want to throw it out there. I know your flex was kind of like, you know, your Achilles heel last year. No pun intended, Aaron Rodgers. But I do think that could be fixed next week. That might be your Achilles heel moving forward. Next game we have is Nugget versus Jim, and this was definitely the battle of the running backs. I mean, we had Christian McCaffrey going up against who was playing. Let me pull this up real fast. Yes, this is battle of the running backs for sure. It was Christian McCaffrey versus Austin Eckler. Good matchup overall. Like, everyone kind of had a good game. Lamar Jackson kind of had a stinky game for Jim. But I just want to point out, Jim kind of got screwed, right? I don't know the whole drama of what happened, but long story short, Jim made a trade. Jim didn't get who he wanted to trade, and Jim still had a good week. So good on him. I think Jim comes back strong next week. I think he has a good season. And Nugget has had some allegations of collusion, and I'll leave it at that. I'm sure he'll want to speak on it later. Either way, he had a good week. I mean, his players played well, but, you know, good win for him. But Jim did get screwed. I'll throw that out there. Next, we have Spring It versus Mike. Another kind of screwy battle here. Mike definitely benefited from that trade, being able to start the players that he had traded and actually had good games. So Zach was definitely fighting back on that, saying Mike kind of had the upper hand. And while that is true, I would like to point out that Zach stunk up the joint. Granted, Zach, you have time to fix it, but we got to call a spade a spade. You stunk up the joint. I think you would have lost to every other team in the league. No thanks to Kelsey. Obviously, you're missing Kelsey, but I don't think Kelsey can fix that week. But we'll see. You have some time. Fun little fact here. Zach had 5 players total for 6 total points. 3 total goose eggs. So very unlucky for him. It was a rough week 1. I don't want to rag on him too much, but bad week for him. Mike definitely benefited from the trade, but either way, I think Mike would have won even without the trade. But Mike gets his first win. Spring It drops to 0-1. We'll see how he does next week. So the next segment we have is going to be weekly awards. Now I'm going to keep it short, right? We only have 3 awards to give away this week. We're going to do Manager of the Week, Honorable Mention, and Pooped His Pants, okay? Manager of the Week is going to go to Mike Phillips with 120 points. He also had the most potential points. Granted, he did kind of benefit from a trade, but regardless, he had the most points. We'll give him his flowers there, okay? Great week for Mike. He takes the MVP for the first week. Honorable mention, though, I want to give that to Jim. I don't even know if we're going to do this moving forward, but I'm giving it to Jim because he put up 99 points while being screwed. Okay, he would have beat the majority of the league. He had a great week. He still lost, but I just want to shout him out there. Honorable mention to Jim. You had a great week as a manager. And the last award is Pooped His Pants Award. I think it's obvious who got this award. It is Zachary Springett, Spring Daddy, aka Notre Dame. Puts up 68 points in week 1, and fun fact, he would have been beaten by 100% of owners last week. So any argument that he has that he played the highest scoring team is out the window. Zachy would have lost to anyone. Hopefully you can pick it up next week, and hopefully you have a better season. But currently, you have pooped your pants. Congratulations. last segment we're going to get into is a little week 2 preview here. I'm not going to get too far into it, but I'm going to throw out some games here that look enticing that I'm really looking to watch, okay? First one I got is Nico versus Nugget, okay? The 2 undefeateds. Nugget's bouncing back from a pretty bad season last year, toilet bowl winner, to going 1-0 in his first week. Now, he's facing Nico, who also had a decent week. Nico's the only other undefeated team. I'm sorry, not only other undefeated, but he's an undefeated team, right? He's 1-0. So that's going to be a good matchup between those two. I think both of those guys have solid teams. Keep an eye out for that matchup. I think that's going to be a good game. Second game I have is the Sleeper Bowl, and what I mean by that is 2 teams that are kind of slept on, but I think could have a good year, and that's Jim versus Kyle. Kyle is obviously coming off a championship win. Jim is coming off a screwing last week, being screwed from a trade. I would look out for that matchup. I think that's going to be a spicy matchup between those two. So that's my number 2 preview. And then my third game is going to go to Zach versus Matty Will. I mean, this is just a rivalry even without fantasy football. But you throw fantasy football into it, and I have 2 storylines here. One, does Zach actually stink? Does that question get answered next week? Follow next week to see what happens. We'll see if Kelsey's actually good. And second, is Matty Will actually good? And was the Dallas Cowboys the smartest draft pick of all time? Okay, keep an eye out on those 2 things. That's a matchup to look out for. We'll see who wins that game, but I think that's my third best preview matchup. And that's all I got for you this week. I'm trying not to make it too long. Obviously, I don't have a guest, so I appreciate you if you watched all the way till the end. If you did, do me a favor, go down to the comments and just type in jabroni for me. It helps engagement. Also hit that like button and the subscribe. I'm sorry for doing the YouTuber thing, but I'm trying to make this grow. Slevin's trying to make this an actual show, and the only thing I can do by doing that is getting more views and likes and comments. So if you have the time, I would genuinely appreciate it. Besides that, Zach, your mom's a hoe. This has been the Skuchdown Report. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. I'll see you in week 4. Peace.